The LGBTQ pride merchandise controversy continues to be a bit of a hot potato depending on where you stand on the issue. But every day it seems that a new business is discovered to have been flying undetected under the radar as they apparently were quietly trying to please everybody. Trying to please everybody is a losing proposition. But the liberal left believes that while these kinds of tactics have been tried and failed repeatedly, they believe that they are the specially gifted ones that can bring about the new hope and change, the utopia that their corrupt and perverted minds have always dreamt about. This is all part of the Great Reset, in which traditional America, as we have known it, is demolished and rebuilt into their envisioned utopia. In this new America, and by the way, they will probably change the name also, in an effort to completely wipe America off the face of the earth. Because that's their method of operation. That's their MO. Anyway, in this new utopian America, you will own nothing and you will like it. But in the meantime, the LGBTQ woke mob will continue to take it by any means or by force. You can do like the bad guys do when the law catches up to them and lay down with your legs spread out and your hands over your head and just surrender. But what if you are not the bad guy? And what if they are not the law? We are to surrender to the bad guys. That's what the left wants. Are we to hand over our kids to these degenerates with no resistance? The Cultural Revolution has just gone warped speed, and many people and businesses have been caught off guard. Companies are scrambling to save their reputations and keep their customers and their profits. The average hard-working Joe and Jane are working harder than ever, trying to survive an inflation caused mostly by their own political leaders and government. And on top of that, we are having to protect and defend our children from the debased LGBTQ and woke mob. We are no longer just having to feed the family, keep a roof over our heads, maintain a household, and put a little something away for a rainy day, and hopefully save for retirement. No, now the average American doesn't just have to feed the family and all that, but now the average American has to deal with the wiles of the American left and their LGBTQ woke mob. The mob is no longer the Al Capones, the Gambinos, the John Gottis. No, the mob is now woke, and it's not limited to New York, Chicago, Vegas, etc. The crime bosses of the mob often covered their illegal activities by going into legitimate businesses. Well, the new woke mob learned from this. The mob now looks like Anheuser-Busch with their Clydesdales and Dylan Mulvaney. The new mob now looks like Target and their Satanist designer of Pride Kids clothing. They now look like Kohls with their Pride merchandise. The mob now looks like Disney and their out the wazoo wokeness. And there's many more that make up the new mob, but you get the picture. Then there's Chip and Joanna Gaines and Chick-fil-A, and for sure others that it remains to be determined if they will go by the way of the mob. I think that Chip and Joanna are simply, in a manner of speaking, working out their own salvation with much fear and trembling, as the Scripture says. By that, I mean that they are at a crossroads and wrestling with some huge decisions that will impact them and their business. Time will tell. But it must be weighing heavy on them. Now, my guess is that Chick-fil-A, on the other hand, is playing really hardball and high stakes. Not that the Gaineses have less to lose, because to them the stakes are very high, I'm sure. But Chick-fil-A has something like 2,600 locations and thousands of employees, and they seem very committed to operating their business as good, God-fearing stewards. It seems to me that they would have caved a long time ago if they were not living their convictions. As I mentioned in another video, it's possible that their DEI officer is looking at and handling things quite different than the average woke DEI officer. By the way, do all companies have DEI officers now? Does Hobby Lobby, for example, have a DEI officer? It just seems to me that if I were in their shoes, if I were in the shoes of someone like Chip and Joanna or the leaders at Chick-fil-A, if I were there in their shoes, I would, in a business sense, fight fire with fire as much as my Christian convictions would allow me. And I would fight smart, and I would fight wisely. That just might include hiring a wise DEI officer with solid Christian values and convictions to handle that battlefront coming against my Christian business. Who cares and what does it matter? That's what some of you might be thinking by now. You're tired of seeing all these stories in the news. That's what some of you might be thinking by now. If you don't care that the world is spiraling out of control to its inevitable demise, if you don't care that the culture is decaying into rottenness, not fit for a maggot, if you don't care that children are being groomed and mutilated, if you don't care that your country is being torn apart and destroyed, if you don't care that your family is being undermined at every turn, then by all means, Have a nice life if and while you can. And forget your brother and neighbor. But let me tell you, it matters because it is a warning to all. It matters because the stakes are high. It matters because you might avoid a crisis. It matters because the next business or the next family to suffer great loss due to this woke nonsense might be yours. It should matter to all of us, because if the woke mob can make life miserable for a baker trying to make a living and nearly destroy his business, what makes you think that you are off limits? This revolution will impact everyone. God help us all. Seek the Lord while he might be found. Seek him before it's too late.